Hello and welcome, this is Eagle-Eye621, and today we're back in my armor testing world to talk about the best tools with the best enchantments that you can get. So in this video, we'll be going over the different types, as well as the speed effect they have, as well as different enchantments that affect the different speeds. That includes both efficiency and haste, and you can see some graphs behind me that I will explain in a lot more detail. I'll go over some of the math briefly, and then I'll also talk about all of the different tools and the different enchantment combinations, as well as some non-enchantable tools, which are just good to keep in mind, and show you how to make everything. This video may be a bit on the longer side, so there will be some timestamps down below, which should hopefully embed into the video, which means you'll be able to click around and find whatever it is that you need. Let me also just say that this kind of video does take a very long time to research and make, so I'd appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. And without any further ado, let's get into it. And let's start off by talking about speeds of block breaking. And we're going to start right here with this first section, and this breaks down the speed effect based on your tool material. Now, this is called the multiplier, even though you end up adding it, and I'll get into that in a little bit with the formula. But you can see if you're breaking something with just your hand, it's a 1x, means you don't get a multiplier. The wood counts for 2, the stone counts for 4, iron is 6, diamond is 8, netherite is 9, and gold is actually 12. You can see that visual approximation right there. So the gold is actually a faster tool than the netherite, but there are some drawbacks to this that we'll get into in a bit as well. And if you are not doing any enchantments, then the material does matter a lot. You can think about it roughly in terms of proportionality. Now, I'll explain why this isn't perfect, but if you look at the by hand as a 1, then a wooden tool is essentially twice as fast because it's 2 instead of a 1. A stone tool is 4 times as fast to break a block. And again, the stone to wood is about double. The iron is not quite as much faster than the stone, but it is noticeably faster. When you start to get to the diamond versus netherite, that one little bit of difference is noticeable when you're clearing a lot of blocks, but for one-offs, you're not going to notice it nearly as much as you will jumping from just your hand to a tool that's made of one of these materials. But this, of course, isn't the whole story, and we move on to our efficiency. And the math formula, very briefly, is the efficiency squared plus 1. This doesn't count for 0, obviously. So for number 1 efficiency, or efficiency 1, you would add 2. For efficiency 2, that would be 2 times 2, which is 4, plus that 1 gives you 5. A little bit of math with Eagle-Eye621. Efficiency 3 is 10. Efficiency 4 is 17. And efficiency 5 is 26. And that being the 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is the 26. And this is your visual approximation for that. As you can see, the level of efficiency makes a much greater difference than the tool that you're putting it on based on the material. Because you can see there's only a little bit of a difference between some of these at the end, but there is significant difference even just between the levels themselves. And certainly this whole stack of blocks in numbers versus being unenchanted. Now, there is another effect you can have, and that being your haste. And your haste formula, very briefly, is 20% times the level. So for haste 1, that's an extra 20%. And for your haste 2, that's an extra 40%. And now, what does this look like all together? So you can see right here. So your multiplier plus your efficiency, as I said, even though it's called a multiplier, you add them. So for diamond, you end up with 34. And just so you understand where these numbers are coming from, you can see our diamond started with an 8. And then our efficiency 5 is a 26. And now that gives us a 34. Now, if you add your Haste 2 effect, you increase this number by 40%. That gives you a 47.6. Now compare that to your Netherite, which without the Haste gives you a 35. Again, these stay one apart because you're just adding this stack on top of that stack. And that gives you your 35. And with your Haste 2, it comes out to 49. So it's a little bit more than one more, but not by a lot. And gold here, again, now this is 38. That's your efficiency 5 plus the gold. And with your Haste 2, that comes out to being 53.2. And here is that visual approximation, just so you can get into your head why you do want to have good tools and good efficiency. Imagine mining at this speed with a stone tool or even an unenchanted diamond tool versus a properly maxed out enchanted with a beacon. And to show you how these things stack up so you can take them as you will, we have at the bottom our original stack that we saw over here. On top of that, we've put this stack, which is the blocks you see in the middle. And then above that, we have our beacons for our haste. And then because they're not full numbers, we have a half slab on that and just a trapdoor on that to indicate this is about half, it's about a quarter. I already gave you the numbers. So you can see how much of an effect each successive layer brings. So the answer to the question of what is the fastest tool is actually a gold tool with efficiency 5 and haste 2. Although I'll get into why this doesn't matter as much in a brief moment, but let me just explain why typically you don't talk about gold. There are some edge cases which does bring this back into play, which you'll see, but the use number, and that being that you only get 32 uses out of gold, and even with an unbreaking 3 on that, which means that if you get your average luck, you can multiply that by 4, roughly 120 uses before you need to stop and try and mend it, so you don't accidentally break it, compared to even a non-unbreaking tool like diamond or netherite. It's just so much more convenient not to need to carry around so many more tools or to have to go back and forth and mend them so quickly that really you're going to be talking about diamond and netherite more than gold unless it is one of those edge cases. Now it is important to know that these numbers, except for your haste, are for proper tools only. And what does proper tools mean? I have a little chest right here with a stone axe, unenchanted, and a perfect pick. This was netherite. And we just have some wood right here. And if I go into survival mode, you'll see if I try and break this with my hand, look at this speed. And now my efficiency 5 pickaxe, even though this is netherite and efficiency 5, you may be thinking this stack just minus your haste. You'll see that it's actually the same speed as by hand because this is the wrong tool. So you don't get any of those additional benefits. Now, even something like an unenchanted stone axe is going to be a lot faster. So as much as this does matter, it also is very important that you pick the correct tool or none of this helps. The haste does add, so if you're using the wrong tool, then the haste will still affect it because it's as if you're breaking by hand, but otherwise do make sure you use the right tool to save yourself some time and some headaches. So now here is a little bit of a cheat sheet, and then I will show you the formula and how you get this. If you want to take a screenshot, this is one of the 2 screenshots that's going to help you out a lot. And this tells you essentially what you can Insta-Mine, and the number on the side, this is efficiency 5, and this 1.13 is the maximum hardness of a block that you can Insta-Mine. And for your diamond, if you're efficiency 5, it's a 1.13. If you have Haste 1 on top of that Efficiency 5, it's 1.36. And for Haste 2, it's 1.586. Now for your Netherite, with your just Efficiency 5, the maximum hardness for Insta-Mining is 1.16. If you add your Haste 1, that's 1.4. And if you add your Haste 2, that is 1.633. And then for your gold, which is again faster, it's 1.62 for just the Efficiency 5, 1.52 for your Haste 1, and 1.777 for your Haste 2. Now this number is actually really important, and we'll get to that a little bit towards the end. But now let's talk about how we get to these numbers and with these formulas. And if you want a second screenshot, let me move my cursor out of the way so you can actually get a decent screenshot. This is what you're going to want to take. And this is your formula. Now, how do these formulas work? So some brief abbreviations. BH is block hardness, TM is your tool multiplier, the EFF is your efficiency number, and the HL is your haste level. For this formula, the efficiency number means this stack right here, based on your efficiency. So if it's efficiency 5, it's 26, and that's really all we're talking about because that's the best efficiency that you can get. And what you do is you take the block hardness, which you generally will just need to look up or memorize, and the wiki has a great table of those. You multiply that by 30, and you divide that by the tool multiplier plus its efficiency. So for this example right here, we can just take Netherite, for example, and it would be your efficiency 5 haste 2 with, that's 49. We're not getting to that. It's just the 35 because it's just your Netherite plus your efficiency. Let's go back. Now you're going to multiply that by 1 times your haste level times 0.2, and then you take both of these and you divide it by this. So what this looks like in terms of an actual example is for a hardness 1 for your stone, using Netherite here with your haste 2 and efficiency. The stone is a hardness 1, so it's 1 times 30, and you divide that by 9. That's your tool multiplier, plus 26, and that's your efficiency number. And then you also add to that 1 plus 2 times 0.2, which is your haste number. And you divide both of these by 30, and you end up with 0.6122. And anything under 1 is Insta-Mine. So you can Insta-Mine anything that'll take 1 tick to mine. And that's what this number represents in terms of your speed. It's how many ticks. And there are 20 ticks per second, just to give you one more idea on speed. Now, if and only if the outcome of this is above 1, so 1.01 or above, then you round up to the nearest whole number and you add 6. So that happens with our hardness 2, which this cobblestone block is. It does have a hardness of 2. Now it's 2 times 30 instead of the 1 times 30 because that hardness level changed, and the rest comes out the same. Now this now actually comes out to 1.224. Because that is greater than 1, we round this up to 2, and because we have had to round up, we add 6, which gives you 8. So this will take you 8 ticks to mine, versus insta-mining means you can mine it in 1 tick. Now just do be aware in terms of full disclosure, the wiki says it's supposed to be a quarter of a second, which would be 5 ticks instead of the 6 here, but in my testing I found it was actually 6, so that might just be an error or a rounding number in the wiki, but take these numbers and just understand the difference right there between what I got and what maybe I was supposed to get. I'll also give some shout outs at the end that I am in pretty good company with these numbers, but you know, I may make some mistakes. I do my best. Now, how does this play out in the real world? It doesn't really matter most of the time. So these right here are your 4 blocks with the hardest number, the highest hardness number, that is, when I'm not talking about something like a barrier block or bedrock, something that's actually breakable. So we have our respawn anchor, we have our obsidian, our netherite block, and our crying obsidian, and that would be a hardness of 50. Now, not talking about gold, because really we're only ever talking about diamonds or netherite, so if you want to upgrade your diamond tools to netherite, the amount of time it would take you to mine in one of these blocks, and again, these are the hardest blocks, which means they take the longest to mine. If you're using an unenchanted tool, that's just a diamond pickaxe or a netherite pickaxe, the diamond will take you 9.7 seconds, whereas the netherite will take you 8.65. And that's a decent difference. An extra second there is a decent amount, but you'll see as we start to stack on these things, the difference between them starts to go away to be almost negligible. If it's just efficiency 5, your diamond efficiency 5 pickaxe will mine one of these blocks in 2.55 seconds, and the netherite will do it in 2.45. So it's a tenth of a second. Now that does equal 2 ticks in the game. That's why these are in increments like that. So is it worth it? Just for your speed, you'd have to choose. Now, if you have Haste 2 Beacon as well, then your Efficiency 5 Haste 2 Diamond can mine one of these in 1.9 seconds, which your Netherite is in 1.85 seconds. So it's 0.05 of a difference. It's 1 tick difference. You'd be hard-pressed to notice that unless you were mining a lot of these. So in terms of the tools that you want and the materials, the speed actually isn't as important as the extras. And the main extra, as I noted over here, is that your gold can only do 32, whereas your diamond can do 1,561, whereas the netherite is 2,031. Now, the netherite also has one very nice extra bonus, and that is that they don't burn in lava. So that is huge. If you're spending all the time to get your tools maxed out, you don't want them to be destroyed. So the netherite is faster, but generally not noticeably so, but it is still worth it just because you can mine more and worry less about everything being destroyed in lava. So now let's talk about the edge cases. And here we have some terracotta, and we also have some basalt, and these have a hardness of 1.25. And I did say that this number here was important, and that's because a gold efficiency 5 pickaxe can Insta-Mine it, because it can Insta-Mine anything up to 1.26. So 1.25 is lower than that. That means that you don't have to set up a beacon, and you can still Insta-Mine terracotta or these basalt blocks. So if you're going out for a quick run, this is where it may be worth having a couple of golden pickaxes, or if you're not gathering a whole lot, just using your gold efficiency 5 pickaxe, you don't need to set up a beacon, which you would for either your netherite or your gold. As you can see, to hit that 1.25, you would need at least a haste 1 beacon to add to that efficiency 5. So there is your edge case where the the gold comes into play and may be worth it. There is one other edge case worth noting, and that's for your glazed terracotta. Of course, the terracotta is any of them. The glazed terracotta is also any of them. And this is a hardness of 1.4. And 1.4 means that with a haste 1 beacon, the netherite just is enough to do that, as is your gold. But of course, if your netherite does it, then your edge case for your gold goes away. Whereas for the diamond, you can see that we would need to go to the haste 2 in order to be able to do that. So for your glazed terracotta, if you're making your whole base out of this and you need to do a lot of changes, in Insta-Mine is always going to be better, then this can come into play. You would only need a level 1 beacon. That said, by the time in your game you're setting up a beacon, the difference between a Haste 1 and a Haste 2 is really just the time it takes to set up, because you're going to have all those materials. Now, it is worth pointing out that the adding 6 and rounding up is why there is no mining speed between Insta-Mine, which is 0.1, and 8 ticks. So 1 tick or 8 ticks. And that's why mining without your Insta-Mine feels so slow compared to your Insta-Mine, because it's 8 times slower. So there's nothing in there. Now, I do want to just add that there are no blocks with a hardness greater than 1.5 and less than 1.8. So there are no other edge cases of note where all of these numbers really make a difference. So in terms of your best material, you really are going to want to stick with your Netherite, mostly for your durability and for your not burning in lava. It's not the fastest. Gold is faster, but it is just such a pain to use because it has basically 0 durability when you're doing any sort of project at scale. But, keep them around for your edge cases of your basalt needs and your terracotta needs. So that is your takeaway on type. And now let's talk about the tools specifically with some other enchantments. And some of this is going to be similar to my past video on this. But for those that haven't seen or need a refresher, let's talk about our pickaxes first. The way that you make the pickaxe is just like this. And then you convert your diamond pickaxe into a netherite pickaxe through your smithing table. And then your choices for enchantments are your mending and unbreaking, which you're going to want to add along with your efficiency 5. Of course, you can do lower efficiencies, but we're talking about the best. So efficiency 5 is where it's at. And then you have to pick between your fortune 3 or your silk touch. There are some cursed enchantments that you do want to avoid, but do be aware they may end up on your tools if you're doing enchanting through the table. In terms of your best, it's actually split here. You're going to want an efficiency 5 unbreaking 3 mending, and you're going to want one of them with silk touch and one of them with fortune 3. So in this case, your best pickaxe is actually 2 different kinds. Now, as for your shovel, this is the recipe. And again, the smithing table plus your netherite ingot will turn the diamond into a perfect shovel, which is going to be netherite. Now, this is a little bit of a preference. You can add your mending and unbreaking and efficiency 5. These are a must. They don't conflict. But you then need to choose between your fortune 3 and your silk touch. Now, this is a little bit of a preference, I suppose, but really the only thing that your fortune 3 is going to do is bother the heck out of you when you try and mine any sort of gravel, because it'll turn all of your gravel into flint. So I much prefer the silk touch. You get some added benefits in terms of getting some grass blocks and the like, and you're not really going to use this to break anything that you would care about the fortune about. It's just going to bother you. But if you need a lot of flint in a hurry, sure. Maybe again make 2. If you can only make 1, this is what you're looking for. For our axe, we're just talking here about the use as a tool, not as a weapon. That'll come in a different video. This is how you make it. And then again, smithing table with your diamond axe will get you your netherite axe. And here we have a couple of choices. Your mending, unbreaking 3, and efficiency 5 don't conflict, so those go on it. Now you need to choose between silk touch and fortune 3 here again. And then you also can choose between your bane of arthropods, your sharpness, or your smite. And just like the others, you can end up with a curse, which you want to avoid. Your best here, and not talking about the sharpness or the smite, I'll get into that in the weapons video, as I said. I prefer silk touch. It is a little bit of a preference, but it's a nice way of getting some passive leaves when you're mining trees, and I just prefer having the silk touch over the fortune. So between the smite and the sharpness, I'll get to that in the next video, but you can do your fortune 3 if that's what you prefer. Again, preference, but I think in most cases, if you can do 1, you're going to want your silk touch, not your fortune 3. Now, the hoe is the one that's actually changed the most since the last update. So in 1.16, the hoe actually became a designated tool for a number of blocks. Real quick, that's how you make it. Then you add the netherite ingot in the smithing table, and you get your netherite hoe. You can add mending, unbreaking, and efficiency 5. These don't conflict. These go on your best hoe. If you really want to, I'm not going to say it, just make a great hoe. And then you can choose between silk touch and fortune 3. Again, it is a choice. Typically, I think the silk is going to do you better more often than the fortune will, but this is also a little bit of a preference. Now, the reason that you might want to do this is because you can actually break leaves, and the hoe is now the designated tool for the wart block, the shroomlight, hay bales, targets, the kelp blocks, sponges, and leaves. So you can think about mostly in terms of the leaf. Do you want it to drop as a leaf, or do you want it to drop as the sapling or an apple or whatever else it might drop? That's really what your choice comes down to. And again, typically, I think the silk touch is better. You collect the block, and if you really want, then you can always make that change later on. So those are your netherite tools, but we do, of course, have some additional tools here. Fishing rod, just like this. For your fishing rod, you can add mending, unbreaking 3, lure 3, and luck of the sea 3. None of these conflict. You do want all 4 of them on your perfect fishing rod. Again, stay away from the curse of vanishing. And this does help you with your fishing in terms of getting your loot faster and better loot, even though the AFK fish farms have been pretty well nerfed in 1.16. If you're doing a little bit of manual fishing, or you built some of the more complicated ones, this is what you're going to want to have. Your flint and steel is pretty straightforward. That's how you craft it. And you can add mending and unbreaking. None of them conflict. And avoid your curse of vanishing. If you want to add these instead of just using an extra piece of iron and flint, that's up to you. But if you want all your tools to be perfect, then don't forget about your flint and steel. Here are your shears. And for shears, you can add efficiency 5, unbreaking 3, and mending. Here you go. These do not conflict, and together they make your perfect shears. This is how you craft it. Again, avoid the curse. Do be aware, if you have an old world, you could add silk touch to this, but that was removed in 1.9, so you can't make them anymore. But if you still have them, they still do work. So that is something to keep in mind. If your world is older than 1.9, where I'm sure most of yours are, this is what you're looking at. And then moving down the line, we have 2 different kinds of fishing rods. They're going to share this chest right here. We have our carrot on a stick and our warped fungus on a stick. And these can both have your mending and unbreaking on them. Also, again, avoid your curse of vanishing. You have your recipe right here. And these are to guide your striders or your pigs so that you can ride those animals depending on where you are, what you're doing, or why you would want to. But these are more tools to not forget about. And then I will just touch briefly on the Trident. You can't craft it, not in Java. You need to get it from a drowned. And you can have your mending, unbreaking, and impaling 5 on them. These don't conflict. But then you need to choose between your Riptide or your Loyalty and Channeling. The Channeling and Loyalty can both go on together. The Riptide will be in place of both of these. Again, avoid your curse. In this case, we're really only talking about the Riptide. The Channeling and the Loyalty let you make lightning. There is a little bit of a tool use if you have some project you need a charged creeper for. then this is key. You're going to want your loyalty 3 so it comes back faster. And your channeling, wait for it to rain and then make your charged creepers. Or your Riptide, which is movement. If you're in water or if it's raining, you can go incredibly fast with Elytra. It's one of the fastest ways to travel in the game. Fast enough that if you don't have a really good computer, you might run into some issues. That kind of speed. And then you can also use this in terms of throwing Ender Pearls, because Ender Pearl momentum stacks. So you can throw Ender Pearls very far with a Riptide 3. Some people even turn that into a little bit of a golf game where the player is the ball essentially, and you need to throw the Ender Pearl to get where you need to be. Now there are also some non-enchantables, and this is a bit of a crowded chest, so just bear with me for a second. We have new to 1.16, the Lodestone, and this is your crafting recipe. And then once you have your Lodestone, you take a compass and you right-click on it, and it will continue to point to that Lodestone unless the Lodestone has been destroyed if you're in the same world as it is. So this can help you find your way home very well, or waypoints to other places you want to go. You can drop some Lodestones with some compasses you want to rename to tell you where they are, and they can help you find where you need to be. Now, also new to 1.16 is the respawn anchor for the Nether, and this is the recipe. And then you need to fill it with glowstone to make it work, and it does exactly what it says. It changes your respawn so you can live inside the Nether. If you try and use a bed inside the Nether, you'll explode, and I actually use that in my Finding Netherite, which I will link to as well. And then the older versions we have, of course, our lead, which this is your crafting recipe, your clock, which this is your crafting recipe, and your compass, which this is your crafting recipe. And you do need that compass for the Lodestone as already mentioned. And there you have it. Those are all of the best tools with the best enchantments you can get. That's the mining speed explained, the block breaking speed explained, the type of material explained, and all of the enchantments explained. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate a like. If you found it interesting, maybe even share it with one of your friends. And for more videos like this, do be sure to subscribe. The next one coming out, probably next week, is the weapons. And there are a couple of important changes in the weapons, the same way there were a couple of important changes with the tools. I've already done the armor, which again is linked down below. Let me also, before I sign off, just give a little bit of a shout out to Ilmango. When I said over here that I was in good company when my results didn't match what the wiki said, I did find his video, and his video ended up with the same math and the same results that mine did. So I think these are pretty accurate, and let me just give a shout out to him. His video is also good and certainly worth watching, and I will link that down below as well. Thanks for stopping by.